Avenue Grace. I'm back again with another social studies lesson. It's so great to have you all join me today. Last week, we were discussing states' rights and federalism. So we talked about how the federal government has some power and states have some power, and we have to find a balance between those two. So unfortunately, to start before the Civil War, that balance was really difficult to find, particularly when we were talking about slavery and whether states should have the right to choose whether they're going to be a slave state or a free state. So we're going to kind of get into that today. We're going to look at a map, and then you guys will be discussing some of the compromises that the country tried to come up with in order to appease people who believe that we should have free states or people who believe that we should have slavery. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to look at this map. So this is a map of what our country looked like during the Civil War. And you'll see that up here, these blue states all along here are our northern states, or during the Civil War, they'll be considered the Union states. Now, we do have a few out here. Oregon, California, and Nevada were also considered Union states. These are also going to be free states, so no slavery. The purple states down here are our southern states, or during the Civil War, they'll become known as the Confederate states. These were states that wanted to have slavery. Now, when we look at this tan area out here, you'll notice that these are called territories. They are not states yet. These areas were inhabited by people, and they're trying to make a living off of the land, either growing things or raising cattle, maybe up in this Washington territory, mining for gold. Lots of different things that they're trying to do to make a living off of the land here. And this is going to become kind of an area of the country where slavery and the discussion of whether you should have a free state or a slavery state becomes a very heated topic. So you'll be talking about some of the compromises, like I said, that the country came up with just before the Civil War. So let's talk about the northern states up here. Now, before the Civil War and early on in our country, the majority of the money that we're making and how we are living is agriculturally based. We're farmers for the most part. That's how we're making our money. We're growing things. We're selling the things that we're growing. In the South, tobacco was huge in the beginning, and then they start raising cotton. So let's talk about the North a little bit as we're moving closer to the Civil War. We become an industrial area in the North, and that means that factories are popping up, and we're figuring out ways to kind of mass produce things and not use people as much for manual labor. There are people, lots of people working in factories, but we have machines starting to do work for us. And we are making a lot of money off of textiles or clothing, cloth. So we're using cotton from the South to make tons of textiles, and then we're able to sell those off to other countries around the world. So the North starts to make a lot of money, a lot more money than the South. They also have railroads, ways to kind of get products out to other parts of our country to transport things. And the majority of banks are located in the North, so they're controlling that money. Take a moment to think about what that might mean as we move closer to the Civil War and once we get into a war. The North has money. We're able to move things with railroads, and we have control of the money in banks. Then when we look at the South, like I said, we had always been this agriculturally based country. And that remains the same in the South leading up to the Civil War. We are growing cotton, which is this plant that I have pictured here. That is the primary crop that we're growing in the South. And we're using mostly people to harvest that crop. So slave labor was important in the South, and we're using slaves to harvest cotton. That was very important to the South. Now, the South did not have as many railroads. Only about 29% of railroad tracks were in the South before the Civil War and leading into the Civil War. So we're not able to move cotton to other parts of the country. It's mostly going north, okay? We are transporting cotton by boat to other parts of the world or up north. A lot of times that's what's happening. And we don't have many banks in the South. So like I said, the majority of banks were in the north. They were not located in the South. So the South is not as well off in terms of money, just kind of economically stunted. So kind of think about that and what impact that's going to have as we move closer to war and during the war. So they don't have as much money to start with. They don't have ways to move goods or products. And they don't have the banks that are housing all the money. Okay? And then we're going to look at now where we are located, Maryland, on the map. So when we look at our own state in relation to the North and the South, we're what you would consider a border state. Now we do identify as a union state, and we'll get more into how that happened a little bit later, but the majority of industry is happening above the Mason-Dixon line. So that's at our uppermost border of Maryland. The Mason-Dixon line is above us. So it's right along the Pennsylvania-Maryland border. Okay, so most industry is happening above us. Most agriculture is happening below us. So we're kind of caught in this middle gray area. And you're going to take some time today to look at Maryland and what it means to be a border state. Okay, we played a very important role in the Civil War. So I'm going to leave you now so that you can meet with your teachers and you'll work on talking about Maryland as a border state, but then you're also going to kind of talk about some of the compromises that happened leading up to the Civil War. We're going to talk about the territories and how slavery played a role as well. So I will see you again later this week with another lesson, and we'll continue on some of those things leading up to the Civil War. So until then, bye.